It's a Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. You're standing in a hardware store in no hurry at all, comparing two hinges. The store is nearly empty. Everyone you know is at work. Your phone sits silent in your pocket. No meetings, no boss, nobody who needs to know where you are. Last night you slept 8 hours and woke up without an alarm. And the strangest part, the part nobody warned you about, is how quiet your chest feels. That low hum of Sunday night dread you carried for 20 years? Gone. Not managed. Gone. Between you and that Tuesday stands exactly one thing. Not luck, not a lottery ticket, a number, and today we're going to calculate yours. I'm Arthur. I worked an ordinary job for 30 years, retired at 52. I've had about 260 of those Tuesdays a year since, and now I explain what nobody explained to me. The honest note, and today it matters more than usual. This channel uses AI tools for the voice and visuals, and nothing here is financial advice. We'll be using historical market math today, and past performance does not guarantee future results. Principles, not promises. All right, one number to hold on to today, 25. Not 25,000, not 25%, just 25. It's the key that unlocks this entire video, and when I hand it to you in a few minutes, you'll be able to calculate the exact number that buys your Tuesday. On a napkin in under a minute. 25. Keep it. How much do I need to never work again? Everyone wonders it. Almost nobody says it out loud. It feels greedy or childish, like asking how much a dragon costs. So people never run the math, and a thing you never calculate stays what it was for me for 20 years, a fantasy instead of a target. You cannot hit a fantasy, friend, and when people finally do ask it, they ask it wrong. Here's the version I carried around for years. I make about 90 grand, so I probably need, a couple million? 3? Notice what I did there. I started from my income. That's the wrong end of the horse. Your income has nothing to do with your number. Read that again if you need to. The machine we're about to build has one job, replacing what you spend. Not what you earn, what you spend. A family spending $4,000 a month needs the same freedom number whether they earn $8,000 a month or 18. The 18 just gets there faster. This is why the neighbor math never works. It's also, quietly, the most hopeful fact in all of personal finance, and I'll prove it to you before the end. When I was 46, my neighbor Gene, a retired plumber who I'd learned by then was quietly worth millions, asked me across his kitchen table, "What's your number?" I gave him the fantasy answer. "A few million, probably." He looked at me the way a mechanic looks at a man who's been ignoring a noise. Then he slid a napkin across the table and said, "What do you spend a month? Not what you make. What you spend." I didn't know. He made me go home and find out. Took Ellen and me a full evening, and that napkin turned out to be the most important financial document of my life. Let me show you what he wrote on it. Here's what Gene drew. A simple machine with one moving part. You own a pile of boring, diversified investments. Historically, over long stretches through crashes and recoveries, broad markets have returned somewhere around 7 to 10% a year on average, before inflation. Again, historically. Nobody, including me, promises you that. Anyone who does is selling something. Now, the famous question, how much can you draw out each year without the pile shrinking to nothing? Researchers went at this decades ago. Retirement studies built on nearly a century of market history and kept landing in the same neighborhood. Roughly 4% of the pile, adjusted for inflation each year, has historically survived about as long as a retirement needs to. Some years the pile grows faster than you drain it. Some years it drops and your 4% stings. Averaged across history, the machine held 4%. Now flip it. This is the key turning. If the machine pays 4%, then for every dollar of annual spending, you need $25 in the machine. There it is, 25. Your yearly spending times 25. That's the number. That's the whole napkin. Spend $40,000 a year? 1 million. Spend $60,000? 1.5. Spend $30,000. And plenty of paid-off households genuinely do? 750,000. Notice something? The frugal household doesn't just save faster. Their finish line physically moves closer. Every $100 of monthly spending you permanently drop moves the target $30,000 nearer. Nothing else in finance pays double like that. But here's what Gene taught me that the internet never does. You don't wait at zero until the full number arrives. The machine starts paying you long before it can free you. Let me walk you up the milestones. The first 100,000 invested. At historical averages, a $100,000 pile grows by roughly $7,000 to $10,000 in a typical year. Stop and stare at that. 7 to 10 grand, a decent raise, earned by nobody. No commute, no performance review, no Sunday dread. The first time your annual statement shows the pile earning more than your 401k contributions did, you never think about money the same way again. They say the first $100,000 is the hardest, and it's true, but not for the reason people think. It's hardest because you do almost all the lifting. The machine barely helps yet. After it, the machine pulls alongside you, then ahead of you. What it buys, not freedom yet. Something almost better for your health, insulation. A job loss at zero savings is a catastrophe. At $100,000, it's a sabbatical with a search engine. You start speaking differently in meetings, friend. It's subtle. People notice and can't name it. The name is options. But insulation is only the machine's first gift, friend. Keep climbing. One number up, it stops changing how safe you feel and starts changing what you'll say out loud. $250,000 invested. Growth in a typical historical year, on the order of $20,000. The machine is now out-earning every raise you've ever received, and something interesting happens in your chest. I call this the courage number. This is the level where people start telling the truth at work. Because run the 4% math on it, $250,000 supports about $10,000 a year, forever, sustainably. That's not your life covered. It's your groceries covered, for good. Or framed the way it actually lands, it's a shield that means the worst-case scenario, fired, furloughed, fed up, has years of runway instead of weeks. At this level, you can take the risk you've been deferring, the job change, the demotion into work you don't hate, the small business on the side. Not because you're rich, because you're unkillable on a 2-year horizon, and most bad bosses only have 2 weeks of leverage. This is the milestone where I watched a colleague, mid-50s, warehouse ops like me, turn down a promotion everyone assumed he'd crawl for. He told me later, verbatim, "I did the math. I don't need their ladder." The number was doing the talking, and $250,000 only buys the words. Double it, and the machine stops covering your groceries and starts covering half your life. $500,000. 4% of it. $20,000 a year, sustainably, for life. For a household that spends $40,000, half of everything, permanently covered. You are now, mathematically, half free, and half free has a texture you can feel every single day. It means one modest income covers the rest, so one spouse can drop to part-time or switch to the low-stress job, or be home when the kids are. It means we could live on either paycheck stops being a slogan and becomes an audited fact. And here's what shocked me at this level when Ellen and I crossed it. The pile's typical annual movement, up or down, is now bigger than most of your decisions. A good market year adds more than you save. A bad one erases your whole year's contributions on paper. This is where temperament gets paid, friend. The half-free household that panic sells in a crash resets years. The one that shrugs, keeps buying, and goes for a walk inherits the recovery. Every crash in history has so far handed the pile back with interest to whoever didn't flinch, so far, which is exactly why the emergency fund exists, so the machine never has to be touched at the bottom. And then, the finish line. Spending times 25. For most ordinary households, somewhere between $750,000 and $1.5 million. The day the pile crosses your number is the strangest financial day of your life, and I can report this firsthand. Nothing happens. No confetti, no call. The sun comes up, the coffee tastes the same, and you go to work. Except now you're going because you chose to, and I cannot explain to you how different the same building feels. I crossed mine at 51 and worked another year, partly to be sure, partly because, and nobody warns you about this either, the last identity to update is your own. What the full number buys is exactly what it said on the napkin: your annual life, paid by the machine, forever, while the pile, in an average historical sequence, keeps pace with inflation behind you. Work becomes optional. Optional work, it turns out, is the best kind there is. Half of what I do now would technically qualify, including talking to you. But you have to hear the honest footnotes, because I promised principles, not promises. The 4% rule is a planning tool, not a law of physics. Bad early years can force flexibility. Some researchers argue for 3.5% if you retire very young. The answer to that uncertainty isn't a bigger fantasy number. It's the same 3 levers I used: a paid-off house before the finish line, 1 year of spending in cash so the machine never gets sold at the bottom, and the willingness to earn a little in a terrible year. With those 3, the napkin math has held for households far less lucky than mine. Now, let me pick a fight with the internet's version of this video. The internet says, you need $3 million to retire, $5 million in a coastal city. Basically, give up. And every one of those articles makes the same 2 errors, on purpose, because despair gets clicks. Error 1, they multiply your income, not your spending. A $150,000 household spending $60,000 needs 25 times 60, not 25 times 150. That single correction cuts the required number nearly in half, and it's why the couple down the street retired at 58 on what the internet swears is impossible. Error 2. They assume the machine must do everything, forever, starting from zero help. But they forget the other engines. Social Security alone rewrites this math after 62. That's a whole video of its own. Your number only has to bridge you to the other engines, not replace them for eternity. A 55-year-old doesn't need 40 years of machine. They need 12 loud ones and then a duet. Ask yourself honestly right now, have you ever actually multiplied your real annual spending by 25? Or have you been carrying around a number some ad-supported article handed you? Because one of those is a target. The other is a leash. The napkin has one enemy, and it isn't the market. It's the word someday. Here's the arithmetic of waiting. A household investing $1,000 a month at historical averages reaches roughly $500,000 in about 20 years. Start 10 years later, and hitting the same pile by the same date takes roughly 2.5 times the monthly money. Time is doing most of the lifting in this machine, which means the young have an advantage they don't value, and the rest of us have a reason to start this afternoon instead of January. And if you're 50 and starting late, I want to say this directly to you, because the internet writes you off. The milestones still pay in order. $100,000 still insulates. $250,000 still buys courage at 56. Half free at 62, with Social Security walking in the door behind it, is a magnificent place to be, friend. The napkin doesn't care when you start. It only cares that you do. So, back to the hardware store. Tuesday, 10 a.m., 2 hinges, no hurry. Here's what I didn't tell you at the start. That scene isn't hypothetical. It's from March, 4 years ago. The hinges were for a cabinet I built for my daughter Sarah's first apartment, and I remember standing in that empty aisle doing something ridiculous, grinning at hardware, because 20 years earlier, a plumber had slid a napkin across a kitchen table and turned a fantasy into a number. Your turn. Tonight, real annual spending times 25. Write it somewhere you'll see it. That number is not a judgment of where you are, friend. It's a map pin for where the Tuesday lives. And tell me in the comments, Without apology, this is the one porch where the question isn't greedy. What's your number? Mine had a napkin. Yours gets a comment box. The math is patient. People aren't. Be the exception. Take care of your money. It's quietly taking care of you.